Greetings, my fellow geeks, and welcome to Pretend Low Earth Orbit for news transmission number 667 of Geeks in Space. I am Rob Commander Takamalda, and today we're going to be talking about Facebook's Fun Week, trading skulls for space shuttles, and every numismatist's dream coin, joined, of course, by the greatest of geeks, Rob Roseboom.
I'm the greatest.
And Chris DeBona.
I'm the second greatest, or third, depending on the day and who's on the cast.
And who dials in.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not the greatest at everything. Maybe I'm just the greatest at some stuff.
You know, I think you're the greatest at a lot of things.
Greatest at modesty.
That's one of the reasons I really like working with you.
Yeah,
You know?
great.
You're the most modest.
Broadcasting with you, you know?
I think you guys are swell too.
Aw.
Yeah. You're
Group
the
hug.
swellest.
Group hug.
Yeah.
And hopefully the swelling will go down.
Rob, we because you disconnected last time, the story that we skipped last time, I thought we'd let you have a crack at it. The Sea-Winged
It's
saga,
fantastic.
the pilot
Thank
who
you.
crashed.
Wow, is it good?
I was so looking forward to talking about that, and I mean,
Oh, good God. He didn't just break.
And now he broke down.
God damn. I mean, we can save this one for next time. But
It's just can become like a recurring story that just shows up week after week.
like if we show this one up, it boots him off.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Oh,
not again, not again. Anyway,
Damn you,
I
Dennis
was saying-
Boyer!
I was saying that I was so looking forward to this, and I was upset that I couldn't. It was almost as bad as not having internet or telephone working at my house for 9 hours.
Well, how about you bring it home for us there, buddy?
But yes, this story is amazing to me, mostly because I cannot believe that after the first time this guy ran into problems,
Or
he
the
just didn't-
second, or the
yeah,
third.
or third, that he just didn't stop. It seemed like this is the kind of guy that would find a tumor on the back of his head and just refuse to go anywhere to fix it.
like Malignant
Until he
style.
starts hitting like doorknobs,
Right.
doorways, as he goes through it.
So this guy crashed 7 times. The final time was over Lake Michigan. It was a water landing. His plane eventually sunk to the bottom of the lake.
This is in
And he
Charlevoix.
had to be rescued by the Coast Guard. But this whole thing started out in California, right? And he flew across country,
Oops.
had 7 crashes with this plane, all filed with the FAA. And they think it might have sunk because one of the crashes damaged the fuselage so that water could get into it, and it was no longer watertight. So
Wait, you're saying, and I'm not a pilot. I've flown on planes, but you're saying 6 crashes could do damage to the
Yeah.
fuselage?
Weird.
yeah,
That can't
evidently.
be fixed by a visit to Home Depot in the middle of the smallest town in Nebraska in the
Yeah.
middle of the night?
And there was a stop in Ohio too, Iowa, if I remember correctly,
Mhm.
where a lot of people at the local airport, evidently a lot of the plane mechanics there sort of took pity on him, helped him
Jeez.
find the parts he needed to rebuild the plane and try to fly it again. But like the landing gear was failing all the time. It was just a mess, and I cannot believe that he just kept going.
That
So
man needed a
here's the plane.
spouse who would say, "Hey, stop."
That's I guess this fuselage was bad. I mean, this landing gear was bad. This guy is a dum-dum. He spent
Yeah.
$102,000, like one Kickstarter on this plane.
It actually looks pretty cool.
And it's a cool ass plane, but it's also a broken ass plane.
Well, it
Yeah.
is now.
Now, I will say where he crashed is sort of close to where we used to have our annual up north trips, and it is some beautiful country. So
It's
I
gorgeous.
get why he'd want to fly around up
And
there.
die
But
there.
yeah. But
Yep.
I mean, obviously, you can't see much of the forest while you're upside down in Lake Michigan.
Right. And the cherry
Not
crop
like
this
that.
year is probably roached, so maybe
Yeah.
he just gave up.
So anyway, a man. Sometimes you just got to know when to quit, right?
Right? Okay.
It's like he had maybe does he have? Maybe he has a tumor, and this was his way of going out.
Yeah,
I did.
he was malignant.
I did consider that as well. Maybe he was just like, screw it, whatever happens, happens. I don't care anymore. But he didn't seem clinically depressed in the story. He seemed more befuddled that he kept running into trouble with this obviously cursed airplane.
Oops.
The best part about this is crash number 1 was his test flight. He hadn't paid for it yet. It's like, this could have been a warning, buddy. Hop in an Uber, get the hell out. Don't fix it and buy it. Just get the hell out.
Chris, did I ever show you the garage in my house in Bethesda?
Probably. I mean, but it's been years.
Sure. So the reason I bring
Did
it
you
up,
have an airplane in it?
the reason that I bring it up is that the house that I had in Bethesda was a rebuilt from a house that burned down like 10 years prior to when we bought it. And when they rebuilt it, they built it explicitly so that the owner could fit his small airplane in his basement and work on it, because he was a model airplane builder, not a model, like a kit airplane builder. So the basement was really weirdly shaped and weirdly large. And it was probably done at pretty substantial expense because there couldn't be like a support beam down the middle of the house to bear the weight of the house. So anyway, the reason I bring this up is that we learned this piece of information after we bought the house, and then we looked it up. And started Googling around for the homeowner who owned the house before us. And it turns out that not only did this man build the airplane in the basement of the house that we lived in, but he died crashing his airplane. Like he flew like a few hundred miles north and then crashed his airplane. And there's like, apparently he crashed his airplane, got out, crawled to his death away from the wreckage of the plane that he maintained in his own garage. So that's my weird airplane story. Let's see.
Yeah. This did, when I read this first, I thought maybe this is the reboot of Unbreakable.
Yep.
But
and Malda's previous house owner was Mr. Glass.
Ooh, that could be.
So when I think it was my second born was a child in daycare in Palo Alto, north of the highway. A plane went down from the little municipal airport there. And I'm not going to say not far. I mean, it was into East Palo Alto where the plane went down. But it basically, as it was pulling up in the fog, it was overloaded and it hit some power lines that supplied power to all of the stuff north of the highway that didn't have generators. And that would have included Google and all the stuff. And so I remember we got a text message, come pick up your kid. There's no power and it's not coming back for a while. And we're like, oh, what happened? And it turned out it was
Harrison Ford.
Bourne, actually. He was the CTO of Tesla.
Oh, I figured it'd be Harrison Ford.
And him and a couple of other Tesla, not executives, but high ups in engineering, they died. And it was really sad, So, yeah.
I'll say I absolutely love the idea of like building a plane and learning to fly and everything. But my brain has told me, no, that is not something for you. You want that, but you will not have that because you are smarter than that.
Well, so my wife has said that that's fine. Once both kids are off to college and launched, I can go be a general aviation pilot. But until then, nope. So, yeah.
Well, I know where you can get a plane really cheap. It needs a little work.
It's a little damp.
It's a little wet.
Yeah, you'll need to dry some stuff off. But
some gaffer tape and a wet dry vac, you'll be fine.
You get yourself like $10,000 worth of ping pong balls and a barge, and you can get that thing yourself.
It's already crashed 7 times, so it's probably got 10 or 12 more crashes left in it.
Well, it's funny. Everyone's like, well, what you need, because I'm sort of on the water out here. They're like, you should get a seaplane. And I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a great idea.
All the risks of flying and all the risks of boating.
And all the fun of boating, So,
yeah. All right. Well, okay. So Facebook went down earlier.
So, and what is Facebook?
It's the most popular social network.
Okay.
It's. I mean, I know
see an uptick in Geeks in Space consumption.
That's right.
That's my question.
It was a 32% increase in developer throughput. which I thought was pretty funny. And I mean, I think their measure was like GitHub commits or something, but
Right.
it is
though not at Facebook because they couldn't access their
right. It was Haystack customers, I guess. But I mean, it's not a big thing, but I just found that funny because that was just everybody who was sitting on a couple of commits and just like, all right, fine, I'll finish it.
Well, I can't search Facebook Marketplace. I might as well work.
That's right. And that just made me giggle. And related to that, there was an actual more practical story, which is one of the things that Facebook has been blaming is the fact that so much of their employees are working remote. And I guess they were one of the companies that had said that they were going to be having a permanent remote work policy, but they changed their mind.
Well, they're denying the end to the work. So this is like a multiple negative here. So they're denying that they're ending the work from home forever rule. Employees given 3 months to return to Facebook office, not so fast, company says. So apparently they're still going to have the hybrid approach. If I'm parsing this headline correctly.
Written by geniuses, that one.
Well, when people start, it's like, dude, could you not nest your negatives here? Anyways.
Hey, that one just made me giggle. Because I mean, we've all been there. We've all had downtime. We've all had to try to come up with rules for beepers and rules for coverage and schedules. Oh man. And
yeah.
At least I'm glad I never had to deal with the pandemic piece of it. Let's see. So this is a weird story that I don't quite understand. The $1 trillion coin, which did let me
platinum coin.
Yeah. It let me look up the word numismatist.
You knew that word before.
I knew.
You're a nerd.
I knew it, but I wanted to make sure I had it right because I think if I wouldn't have looked it up, I would have probably said pneumatist. The fancy word for what's the stamp collector one? Flagellist?
No, philatelist.
Philatelist.
Philatist or something. Yeah.
Baloo. I'm looking it up. Philatelist. That's the word. Philatelist. That's how it goes.
Philatelist. It's probably pronounced like
silent Q.
Philately is the overall study of postage stamps and postal history.
Right. So there to get around.
We should do a documentary style.
Stupid words.
We have stories like this and say, in the history of time, people have wanted things to go from point A to point B using little pieces of pasted paper.
Sure.
Get all podcasty. This episode is brought to you by stamps.com.
And MeUndies.
And MeUndies.
Squarespace.
Yeah.
Squarespace.
So the $1 trillion coin, there's a whole slew of things about this story that were funny. First of all, there's the piece how every year the government pretends to get itself all worked up into a frenzy, whether or not it's going to pass some stupid bill or not. And it's just this whole big excuse where America's held hostage, which is really just an excuse to sell newspapers and clicks because nobody cares. And they're going to eventually pass something or they're going to cause the entire economy to collapse. But it doesn't, there's nothing anybody can do about that. They're just being children because that's what they do in Washington, D.C.
So I agree that this is a very childish, repetitive, redundant
discussion
that we have every year when a Democrat's in the presidency. But it does have real impact when the government has to shut down in a certain amount of time because they start stopping things. They have to stop doing things in anticipation of not being able to get to work and being locked out like a Facebook worker on an outage.
Break out your angle grinder.
Break out your angle grinder. We got to go to the Medicare office.
Anyway, it like so many of these things, though, it wouldn't exist if not for the fact that it drives the news cycle. And that always makes me grumpy. But this one's interesting because apparently they were saying they can basically add a 0 to an otherwise existing mold. And apparently, that was the part that cracked me up the most. They've already got it. We just got to add the digit. And then the other thing is that apparently because of the way this whole thing works, the mint can just do that without the debt ceiling argument. Because our government makes so much sense.
Well, I mean, this is the nature of money.
Of course.
Right? What does it take to make money? Well, to make physical coinage, it just takes the order of the treasurer and in the executive branch. To create the little digital numbers, you either have to accept a coin of a certain denomination, or you have to have an active Congress and the budget process to create those numbers in the Federal Reserve. So,
It's just
because if you think about it, what the Federal Reserve does. Okay, let's talk about money. So what the Federal Reserve does when it has to come up with all this cash that we talk about to pay for federal programs, right? It loans, it takes out a loan from the world at whatever interest rate they've set, whether it's 0 or 0.11 or even negative 0.11, because we're considered like the world's reserve currency. So what they do is they cut a bunch of bonds, for lack of a better word, right? So they cut a ton of T-bills and people buy them, right? And then they turn them in for money 20 years later, 10 years later, 1 year later. And so, but to cut those bonds, they have to have the approval of Congress to get beyond a certain level of debt that they're taking on for the government. They don't need that permission to print a coin. They need it for copper, for nickel, for gold, and for silver coins, but not for platinum. It's like this little corner. They can make platinum coins until they're blue in the face, and it's meant as sort of like a gift coin or a unique honorary coin. But they're like, we can make a platinum coin. It's allowed. So what you should look for is someone to say you can no longer make it with platinum. That is just like a bond from our perspective, or a gold or silver coin, and thus they'll make an iridium coin or a cesium coin or a lead coin. So eventually they'll just work their way all the way through the periodic table, and they'll be minting, 127 coins.
I've got my Americanium coin, but the problem with that is it's got a really short half-life. It just poof, gone. Oh man,
and it's gone.
Talk about deflation.
Well, what's like the half-life of a transuranic metal? Like it loses half of its value, and then half of its value, and then half of its value.
Kind of like Bitcoin.
Yeah. So.
Anyway, this story.
I want to say though, again, I want to return to the airplane story and say
all right,
it was extremely satisfying, Roseboom. So thank you. Keep it coming, baby.
That's what I do.
That's what you do.
That's how we roll. So all right, the Twitch source code leak was a funny one too. Apparently somebody got their hands on hundreds of gigs of Twitch data, uploaded it to put out torrents, and now you get to see like who the top money makers are on the platform. And I don't think I recognized more than 2 of the names in the top 100.
That's because you're old.
Tells me I'm old.
Mm-hmm.
I know who Dream is, but I think I only know that because he cheated at Minecraft, I guess.
Oh, he's a speed cheater.
I think he was the one, or maybe it was a different one.
Some of them are on The Masked Singer.
Oh. Also, I know some of them because my children request merch of them for holidays and birthdays.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got a big old leak. And they were also so I reset my password, as they said, and I actually spent some time. They sent out a thing. It's like, you should probably reset your keys, your stream keys. Yeah. And I actually, Geeks in Space has a stream key, but I stopped using it because Restream stopped working right, and I didn't have a good way to stream to both platforms simultaneously. But technically, we still had one, so I spent a while trying to figure out how to reset it. And then I got the email that's just like, we reset all the keys. It's like, smart.
It was something.
Ugh. It's been a bad day or bad week for large platforms having really unfortunate problems.
Honestly, I've been looking over my shoulder.
Yeah,
not for Fractured Veil. It's not a large platform. But professionally, I'm like, so, because there's always a temptation to say, I can't believe that AWS let Twitch get compromised. But then I'm like, man, there's probably some schnook with a vengeance just waiting in the wings for some dumb guy like me to say, Google's gonna be fat. So,
it's not a matter of
that said, I have a lot of respect for our people, but I was actually really surprised that Twitch had this level of 125 gigabytes. That's noticeable, right? All of your egress bandwidth charts are going to have like a little pip, right? And I know that they have a lot of traffic. That's not the thing, but file system file data.
Yeah, there's a chart that shows
this
that.
is coming off a different port. This is not coming over the normal ports.
Well, that said, so this goes back to
observed.
This goes back to one of those things, right? You never notice until you have to notice. We had a guy back in the day who was creating accounts on Slashdot, and he would create, like, people would write scripts to create accounts all the time, and they would write scripts that solved the CAPTCHA, and then they would create 1,000 accounts, and then we would block them because they would create 1,000 accounts in a really short window. So bam, okay, fine, we detect that and we block it. We throttle whatever through whatever throttling mechanisms we implement. But then they escalate, and then they got to a point where they would create only like 50 accounts a day, and they'd be spaced out by 20 minutes, and you're not going to notice that, but the guy ran the account. He ran that script for months, and at the end of it, he had thousands and thousands and thousands of accounts that we couldn't detect because he created them so slowly from random IPs. So there wasn't even a really good way to identify, anything about that. I can't remember how we actually identified that it was all the same guy. There was some signature that we detected, but only after he'd been doing it for a while. But you don't notice these things until it goes wrong, and then it's too late, and then you plug that hole, and then 6 months later, it's a new one. Perpetual whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
The thing that always...
It's really something. It's just really something.
The thing that always bums me out about this is I know that there is... Whenever you read a story like this, there's a couple of people who made a dumb mistake, and they feel horrible. And there's a couple of other people, probably in these cases more than a couple people, that have to clean it up. And it wasn't their fault, and now their time is ruined because they have to go clean up a mistake that probably wasn't their fault to begin with, and it sucks. I always feel bad for those guys.
Well, that's very generous of your soul. Maybe one day we'll trade your skull for a shuttle.
I would love nothing more than to know that my skull was traded for a space vehicle. Was
this yours, Roseboom? I think you posted this, right?
I didn't. You did, but you did like a second before I was going to put the link in the channel. So
that's
right on.
I didn't even read this yet, and I'm so excited. I was avoiding reading it just to hear you guys tell me about it.
Roseboom, please take it.
No, you did it.
No, I want to see if your bandwidth decides to reject you as you start speaking about a story that's cool.
No, you.
Okay, so we're all familiar with the graffiti-covered Buran. What is it? The test unit number 2.
Yeah,
that's sitting inside an old rusting hangar or assembly building in the Kazakh steppes of the Ukraine. I believe it's in Ukraine, right? And well, apparently somebody wants to trade the last skull of the Russian Tsar rejecting Kazakhstan for the shuttle.
What a weird
that's
trade.
As far as I got, where I'm like, first of all, who are you trading with? So Darren Musa, he claims he owns the Burya shuttle. He says he'll give it up in exchange for a specific human skull. Who's offering the skull? How did this guy end up thinking that he owns the damn thing? And it's really something.
The skull in question is from a sort of a folk hero.
Yes.
So it would be like
Billy the Kid.
Yeah, or Johnny Appleseed or whatever. I have the skull of Johnny Appleseed.
It's really Paul Revere, right? So
yeah, that's probably a better comparison.
The thing that I think is the most weird about this story is that when Musa started, he started with a penny, and then he traded that for like a stick of gum, and then he traded the stick of gum, for a gumball, and like just kept increasing the trades. And now he's trying to go in for the coup de grace by trading the skull in for a space shuttle.
So I think if this Google Translate of a Russian patch equivalent of a website is correct, they're saying that the former head of the Baikonur operation, Darren Musa, this is like if Thomas Zurbuchen was only one left at NASA during a civil war, and he's like, yeah, you know what? I own all these rockets now,
Although,
You know?
given all the weird stuff that went around the fall of the Soviet Union and all that, like a lot of that stuff just sort of fell into questionable hands. Like, for example, all of their radioactive material.
Well, yeah, they privatized a ton of stuff that were like, okay, you know, and they were selling us missiles for, you know, $11 million.
They were
So it's
there were a lot of people who their navy yards, you know, a ship sitting in salt water needs care
yeah.
all the time.
Did you just hear that
And
thunk? Did that come through the microphone?
no,
Oh, okay. The giant walnut just fell again.
Oh no.
and they end up losing a lot of ships and a lot of people who were just working there. I read stories right after the fall where they would just sell those things for scrap at the end of the day because their paychecks
Yeah,
ended up
they were no
stopped.
longer getting paid.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and they're like, you know, that's worth money. You owe me money. Why don't we sell that?
Yeah.
Pay us, you know?
What are you going to do? Say no?
Well, that's the
You're
thing.
not
It's
here
like, you know,
anymore.
Yeah. Who run Bartertown? You know?
well, who run Bartertown? Who run Bartertown?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, and the thing is, you know, if a ship is about to, I mean, honestly, you're not wrong. A lot of those ships, like, you go 6 months without maintenance and just sitting in dock,
It'll
that's
sink.
yeah, it'll freaking sink. So what do? You go inside and you say, well, we got these generators, we got these engines, we got this stuff. Let's sell it off, and you know, and before it goes into the water, you know. And I'm not sure that I have a problem with it. You know, I know it's weird, but it's like, you know, at that point,
Yeah, what are
I
you going to do?
mean, it's just going to rust away and float away and be an environmental disaster for decades to come. You might as well make some money off it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Those people have to live, and that's
Yeah.
just the way they. It's like when you see, like some of those oil tankers that ended up getting stuck on the coast of Africa, right?
Yeah.
And the company doesn't have the money to take care of it, so they end up either paying locals to come and chop it up and give them part of it, or they just abandon it to them and let them part it out
And let the oil just stain the coast
Right.
for generations to come.
That's
Now,
just penguin dye.
Let's be clear also, the explosion inside Lebanon in Beirut, right? That was a ship full of ammonium nitrate
That's true.
that was parked there. And they're just like, I don't know. You know, I don't know what to do with it. And so some people took some of the ammonium nitrate and used it for their own purposes. We know that to be true.
Well, with all of the
And
stories going on
the rest
now,
just said, put it next to the fireworks and the spark plugs. Yeah.
you have all the stories now about all the container ships being blocked off and like all the supply chain problems that are going. You know that there's 1,000 incidents like that around the world just waiting to happen.
Yep.
Yay!
This is one thing, like when I'm watching Why the Last Man, right?
Oh, I need to watch that still.
Christine's like, I don't think the world would fall apart like this. Women would step up, and it's absolutely true. But it's all the stagnant machinery. You know,
Yeah.
what happens if we suddenly need half the energy, half the explosives delivered, you know, and all the male captained and staffed ships just crash. You know, it's like,
Yeah, the supply chain stops.
yeah.
The logistical nightmare that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
It'd
yep.
be sad, you know, if all the.
Well, I mean, we'd be dead, so whatever. It's their problem now.
Tis true.
It is true.
What else we got?
We got
So there was
Raccoon
something
City.
else.
I didn't.
Raccoon City.
Resident Evil,
Yeah,
Raccoon City.
They're rebooting Resident Evil.
I mean, isn't Mila Jovovich getting a little long in the tooth to be doing these movies? But yeah.
Wait, I thought it was a video game. I didn't realize that they were.
No, it is a video game, but of course they make a. What was that?
That was the sound of the trailer when I pressed play.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's a movie.
Yeah.
They're rebooting the movie, the franchise.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here you go. Here's the Resident Evil. Take me down to a raccoon.
I would,
City where
if I had a choice, I would much prefer to see a Squirrel Girl to a Raccoon City, but you know that's me.
Are you sure this is a video game, or is
It's
it like a cinematic
No,
trailer
it is
for
a
a
movie.
not a
video game?
video game. It's a movie.
Unless
Yeah.
they've really upgraded the engine. I know the PS5 is good,
They're
but
rebooting the Resident Evil franchise, the movie franchise.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm really confused at this point. But let's watch the trailer. No, it's not.
we don't need to watch.
First
the
of all,
trailer.
why is she using a circa 1980s VCR in
because it
Raccoon
takes
City.
place
Set in
1999.
1999.
Oh,
like
they're
that.
really retro rebooting it.
Yeah.
I had that video recorder.
Who's
Oh
this?
God, it's the guy from the CW shows.
He looks like the guy from Shield. What do I
He
know?
was the other half of Killer Frost's boyfriend, and he was in that movie about the superpowered people who were sort of the underclass.
Oh yeah, I hated that movie.
And he's the cousin of Stephen Amell. He's Robbie Amell.
Oh,
Bam, brain works.
And eventually he's gonna have to be a professional wrestler because that's what happens to Amels.
Yeah. It's like the amyl nitrate.
So we also have the
This looks
Stargate
completely
actors
generic.
thing.
Oh, good God. I'm not going to watch this trailer. Okay. Yeah. So this has already happened and it'll come out, I guess, in November. I guess someone
weird.
at my company had some AI system write an episode. So there you go.
Well, what's weird about this is I'm just scanning through is it looks like it's got actors from all the different shows.
Yep.
So this is going to make total sense.
Yeah, so they had Jewel State, who was in Stargate,
She was in
David
Sgwan, not in Sgoo.
No, she was in Stargate Atlantis.
Oh, Ska.
Yeah. And it had Hewlett, who was McKay. He was in all of them. And then Shanks and Carter. So
this one, you find out there's a sect of aliens who represent the Finnish gods.
Oh.
So you get to learn.
Well, maybe they'll
about
finally
pantheon.
reveal the Furlings, So there's 5 races, 5 great races. Humans become one of them. So they become the 5th. And then you have the Nox, the Ancients, the Furlings, and one other.
The Asgardians?
The Celestials.
The Celestials.
The Eternals.
And Jason Momoa is one.
Just Jason. Hi.
Well, because Jason Momoa was in Stargate Atlantis.
He was in Atlantis.
Famously. Yeah. So famously. Yeah.
He's actually 1,000 people just pressed together.
Squished together in sausage
That's
tube.
what a furling really is.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That makes sense though.
And then they show this picture, and this guy on the right, he was in like 2 episodes. He was in Battlestar Galactica prominently. It's like, dude, don't show me the one episode where you had the bounty hunter from Battlestar Galactica inside Stargate Atlantis. We're gonna notice. Come on, giant freaking robot. Sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't broadcasting. So
it's gonna be all right,
everyone
man.
knows that this guy, he's been in a zillion things, but only 1 episode of Stargate.
I didn't know that, but by the time Stargate Atlantis got really going on, that show was puttering on steam.
I have an unabashed love for the entire thing.
I think I've told you this before, but the very first episode of Stargate I ever saw was like in season 4. It was the time loop episode, the Groundhog's Day.
It's a great episode.
It's a great episode, but I literally had no idea who MacGyver was. Like, he's time looping in space. This is weird.
The very first one I saw was the one where they find the little teeny robots that eat everything.
Oh, the
whole
replicators.
Yeah. That's when the show kind of starts falling apart.
Once you start introducing nano goo robots,
yeah,
it's kind of like, okay, then it's time to wrap this shit up.
Nanobots are essentially sci-fi magic. And once you introduce, it's the same thing as the Marvel stuff, right? Once you introduce magic, you just negate.
I was just happy that the way they defeated him didn't involve them going to someone for an object they needed and then having that person have them complete a task for them.
Yep.
And then that task leads to another task.
A fetch quest.
Fetch
that
quest storyline.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, with 17 years worth of Stargate, you've got every storyline.
Yeah. But this goes back to what you've heard me say this 1,000 times. I would love to watch 30 good episodes of Stargate, but I am not going to ever watch the 200 episodes or whatever that they have.
Okay, I'll write up a guide for you because there's more than 30 actually in the Stargate canon that I think are valid and worth your time and not crap. So, I mean, there's actually a lot more than 30.
Well, you're going to have to wait because I'm actually... First, I got to watch the rest of Squid Game.
The problem, too, is quite often those shows, particularly towards the end, will still have 5 or 10 minutes worth of top tier idea, but they don't have anything else, so they have to. It's like when you make, like when a band makes an album. When a band used to make an album, they would have 3 good songs, and the record company would be like, "You got to have 12 songs on the album, so better start cranking them out."
So one of the stories. Do you remember Labyrinth? I'm sure you do. Yeah. So
David Bowie's balls.
Oh no! So go ahead and talk. I'm going to bring up. I want to make sure I say the right things.
You got to learn the correct word for the metal ball spinning juggling thing. Is that pneumatist and numismatist?
So, Mirror Mask, right? So what happened was the Jim Henson Company wanted to re-release Labyrinth as part of like an anniversary thing, right?
Sure.
So along with the Dark Crystal, so they were going to do like a 3-pack, and they're like, well, we need a third, right? So they contacted Dave McKean and they said, well, they contacted Neil Gaiman, who contacted McKean, who said, you guys should do this. And so they came up with Mirror Mask and produced it for like $4 million using like Video Toaster and Adobe Premiere and pushed that sucker out, right? And I have no idea why I'm telling this story again. It has something to do with what we were just talking about.
Mirror Mask.
So, yeah. So sometimes, here's what it was. Sometimes you have an idea and it turns into Mirror Mask. And sometimes you have an idea and it turns into like that crappy episode that has 5 minutes of gem and the rest is just filler. Right.
Or there's some suit above the creative folks who are
the suits.
Well, for marketing purposes, we have to have this much content. So we will go ahead and make a third of this complete garbage because we've decided that this is the number of minutes we have to have, and package it all together.
I think for me, what it comes down to is with most of those shows, they start off with an ensemble of like 7 actors, and then over the course of 3 seasons, they add like 5 more, and maybe 1 or 2 quit or get written out. But then what you have to have in every episode is you have to have an A plot, a B plot, and sometimes a C plot. And the C plot is the 2 characters that nobody likes. And it doesn't even have anything to do really with the main story. And so all that could just get cropped out. And that's why I think a lot of the peak TV, golden age of TV sorts of shows that we see now, you don't generally have, if you have an A plot and a B plot and a C plot, they're at least really well interconnected. And I actually read that that's actually one of the things about The Mandalorian. If you look, The Mandalorian has very little B plot. It's just one story. Let's tell me one story and not worry about, what the 3rd and 4th character are doing, because those stories end up generally being weaker.
And also propped up by people who think the Holocaust and vaccine denial are connected.
Could be.
Yeah.
I don't know much about that Gina lady. I know that the Lucy Lawless is in the news now. But
what?
Because she was apparently in talks to do something in the Star Wars universe, and then they backed off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were. I thought she was going to take over that character.
That was the fan casting. Supposedly she was in talks to do something completely unrelated in the Star Wars universe, but then after the
everyone thought she was just replacing Cara Dune.
Yeah, okay. Because of that, then they backed off and decided to hold back on that.
This is like one of those internet arguments. I'm like, there's probably too much for me to give any crap about.
Yeah,
for sure. Too much digging, so.
There you go. There's the link. So the only other one, Chris, I saw your eyes. Have you been watching Squid Game?
We watched the first episode last night, my wife and I, and it was super good, super intense. I'm like, you really have to watch Battle Royale with me. She's like, okay, we'll do that someday.
I saw that on your Plex.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it was very intense.
Well, good. I'm not gonna say anything spoiler wise, but every single episode I'm like, oh my God, this can't get more horrifying. And then it does. But it's still extraordinary. And the production design is just glorious.
Yeah.
In the first episode, do they show in the first episode, do they show them in the like fluorescent color MC Escher house?
For a moment, yes.
Okay. Because
so they haven't had that episode yet, though.
There's bits and pieces of it shown in every episode, but just like the visuals of that and the visuals of the red light, green light sequence in the first episode. But every episode has amazing visuals and then something horrible that makes you just feel horrible about every part of humanity. I don't think there's going to be a happy ending to that one, Chris.
How many people died in that first episode game?
Well, there's 469 people.
There was 456. Right?
Is that
456?
456? Yeah.
Yeah, 456.
Like 200 people die.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, well, I mean, I'm like, they're going to run out of players. You know,
we shouldn't spoil. And I think that the point is that they have to run out of players.
Yeah.
Because capitalism, baby.
Well, that's the thing. You know, the original Battle Royale was an analogy for the harshness of the Japanese high school to college pipeline system.
Yep.
And it really pissed off people when it came out.
Yeah.
So, you know, this one, I'm like, you know, we all know how vicious, you know, capitalism can be, right? So is that what you're trying to tell us, you know? Or is it just, this is how awful the world is, and there, you know, life is cheaper now, and there's so many people that, you know, you have this subset of people who we should just consider entertainment and disposable. You know, it's like, holy crap, dude.
Magnum wants to know if we're going to talk about Google demonetizing climate change deniers.
Good, screw them.
I don't know anything about it except I saw the headline.
I don't know. Let me take a look, see if there's a story out there.
But that's all we have on the list.
Google to ban ads and demonetize YouTube videos promoting climate change denial. Okay.
But just
I'm good with that.
None of the other conspiracy theories, like
Bigfoot.
No moon landing. That's okay.
No, well, you know, we banned like anti-vax content or something a week ago or so, you know, so.
They've been tightening the screws, man.
Let me see. Let's see, in a blog post. Where's the blog post?
All right, let's wrap this call up so that I can go watch the final 3 episodes of Squid Game and truly hate everything about the universe.
Okay.
Goodbye, Chris DeBona.
I'll see you.
Goodbye, Rob Roseboom.
Later.
I was Rob Commander Taco Malda. That was Geeks in Space, and we'll see you Tuesday. Bye.